changes that occur from spiritual awakening experiences change our relationship with ourselves, touching all aspects of our lives. There are rhythms of going inward, compelling the time of change and transformation as motions of remembering into the deeper realms that were always there, yet often hidden by the cycles of life that command attention. As these ebbs and flows occur, there are losses, steps forward, and movements, taking leaps, and standing still in the chrysalis, not knowing the cocoon was even woven. But then there's finally a feeling of the chrysalis's presence, which is a compelling calling to move through and transform. Ever transforming, even if there is a dash of fear, it is not large enough to impair the next step. These cycles feel like they are my cycles, but they are larger cycles of time and the time of transformation. This time in history is our story. How do all these cycles transform the relationships we have to our practices, that which feeds our soul, to the people around us, family and friends, to old friends and new connections? The impact on our relationships with spiritual awakenings, integration of experiences. As we are on our journey, we are evolving through our relationships with ourselves, and this evolution rolls onto our experiences, our past, and the people in our lives. As we navigate our own discoveries, adjustments, and changes through micro and macro changes, remembering can occur from suppressed or unaccessed information that can occur from when we were a child or in the dream state, from a parallel or past experience or aspect of ourselves, or while having a spiritual awakening experience. In these moments, there can be experiences or segments of an experience we cannot process because it's a system overload, or because we don't have the framework to digest the content, and because the content does not fit into the current paradigm. That is, parts of the experience are difficult to integrate because the parameters of this time hold strong limitations about what is possible, what can occur, who we are, and what our limitations are, what we are capable of. In time, for some people, they will have a moment where the memory resurfaces and they can integrate. For others, retrieving the memory can occur through a feeling there is something missing or something that is needed to be known, and they can work with other people to access and integrate these memories. As we change and grow with spiritual awakening, some of our relationships with other people can become challenging, or there are challenges that can crop up. And these challenges are for us to feel and experience the energy, check out our triggers, and notice how these challenges are moving into our life and what their greater meaning is. The challenges may be ways for us to notice the quality and the connection, and if that is still meaningful. Sometimes these challenges are calling us to be brave and speak our piece in a loving way that allows the relationship to continue. And this is often a challenge for us if we're not comfortable with these situations, when our comfort zone is not to confront the uncomfortable. Other times, we may opt to let the relationship go and make an effort to set boundaries that allow for breathing space to see how it feels to us. And another option that occurs is recognizing the relationship was part of our path at one time, and now that path is the past, that it would be a negative experience for both people, and it needs to be let go. In other words, the relationship has reached its apex and it's not able to sustain the connection. When this occurs, our direction has changed, we have changed. And this doesn't mean the other person is bad or we're bad. It means there has been a shift in perspective. about non-judgment relationships. Another layer of our development in the spiritual awakening process is learning and knowing different people have different roles in our life, and we have topics that are not for everyone, that some are for deep sharing, and an element is stepping into non-judgment with boundaries. We can still sustain relationships where we don't share everything without giving up who we are. And we can also discover new connections where we can share the subtleties, our awarenesses, and experiences in every detail, whether those relationships are in person or online groups. While we may be disappointed, the people we are even living with, or our partners, children, or parents are not able to share these experiences, it does not mean we are not close with them. We can remain close. And it does not mean we are isolating or cutting ourselves off from our own experiences. This can happen and is not helpful for our development, as we are social beings and need to find like-minded people. There are professionals, social media groups, YouTube channels, and in-person opportunities to meet others who share spiritual awakening experiences, which are often surprising and sometimes mirrors for our own state of awareness. Where does this lead us? Often on the journey of spiritual awakening, there are gradations of change that lead us to attracting new connections. And as we make these changes, there's a natural attraction to people who are aligned with our values, experiences, and direction. Look for sharing experience groups where others are willing to be vulnerable, because this rubs off and gives us confidence, like the International Association for Near-Death Studies, also called IANDS, IANDS, and the Spiritual Awakening International Group, SAI, that are free for sharing online, that are offered monthly. Another component of spiritual awakening is our own opening within our heart to compassion, forgiveness, and connection that creates empathy and understanding. These feelings are also components of love and generate kindness and consideration. And all of these characteristics allow us to be more fully present, more aware, more loving and open, and generate deeper connection. When we're able to hold more love, our capacity to hold more love continues to expand. And when we're open to connecting with others and creating relationships, there can be a deep, loving, and supporting turn. This openness has allowance within it that generates and sustains connections through time, and knowing that may never be affected by how much time lapses between meeting or circumstances that change each person. And these connections are not only with other human beings, but may extend and include to animals and all creatures in the water, air, and land. And for some people, it is the reverse. The extension of a deep compassion and commitment in love is easier to animals and creatures, including insects, than to human beings. Another layer of this deep connection and commitment can extend to the environment, to the land and waters as well. Due to these deep changes of feeling and connection, the person may change their life path, know their sense of purpose is different, and in so doing disrupt the previous human relationships, because they are no longer sustaining the old behaviors that are tied to expectations, so the relationship or relationships no longer fit. Another aspect to consider after a spiritual awakening, and as they continue, that is more extreme, is often the person is trying to figure out what has happened to them and what is continuing to happen. The continued changes may affect perception of reality. They often do. Understanding at new levels, new perceptions and abilities, different interactions with people at different levels, aware of different systems that are engaged, as well as with places and creatures, with awareness of the interface in the body, mind, emotions, etheric, and spirit. These changes are a new level of sensitivity that sometimes can be overwhelming to navigate, especially at first, or when there's a strong peak experience. With these changes, there may be a need for safety, rest, restoration, and processing. In an effort to manage and understand these changes, sometimes people want to isolate themselves, and this provides safety, protection, and opportunity for integration, but is only beneficial when there is balance and is not for a long time because we are innately social beings. The following two areas offer a deeper explanation of these elements of spiritual awakening relationships to ourselves. Communication is the first area. While some advice might be to share openly and honestly with other people after a spiritual awakening experience and while on the journey, which can be an entire lifetime, this is also tempered with wisdom. Not everyone is able to understand or comprehend the changes a person goes through with a spiritual awakening experience and how that impacts a person's life and their choices and in their body, mind, emotions, and spirit. Some people may find sharing scary for the other person, or they might want to label us. Others cannot abide by the changes that have been experienced and will move away. While there are movements to teach practitioners who interact with people who have a spiritual awakening experience and discern mental health issues to become more sensitive to and compassionate, many people do not understand and have negative judgment. Therefore, sharing openly and honestly may be detrimental to you and your relationship. These decisions to share openly and honestly are all tempered by whether the spiritual awakening experience or experiences causes a dark night of the soul, creates depression or anxiety, inability to sleep, or distress. In these situations, contacting the spiritual emergency resources to find someone near you and making sure you're safe is invaluable and a priority. The other area is sensitivity. When people have gone through a single extreme experience or have continuous smaller spiritual awakening experiences, their level of sensitivity to all things changes. What once was tolerable or even enjoyed may no longer be. Sensitivity to light, sounds, places, intentions, perception, seeing what is unseen by others, odors, synchronicities, symbols, auditory, and perceiving people's energy changes and often is heightened and extremely heightened. Within our sensitivity and inner awareness development is learning when it is time to rest, to go within, and time to engage. Takes noticing on subtle levels and learning cues. This includes learning to say no and learning to say yes. 5 ways to navigate through the dynamics of spiritual awakening and relationships. Number 1 is this single one area is above all the other suggestions below because it profoundly influences each of them. When we're aware of our feeling awareness within our physical body and our multisensory developing awareness that is connected and related to different feelings, we're able to attune within and know what is the right move for us. There is a thoughtfulness about the delivery of verbal information and our behavior that is not destructive or blaming, but holds responsibility for the feelings as an honest and appropriate step. Often this is challenging for people because we're not accustomed to this finer attunement. Also, people sometimes avoid connecting with and within the physical body awareness due to painful experiences from any time in their life in the past. So they're disconnected and not able to do that connection. That's why practices on a daily, regular basis that integrate higher spiritual awakening experiences significantly contribute to positive, subtle adjustments in the physical, mental, and emotional fields, affecting and heightening our perception holistically, which allows us to continue to expand and heighten our awareness. This is because the areas that are affected from a spiritual awakening experience include changes in our neurological system, electromagnetic system, with our intuition, our emotions, our etheric system, our comprehension and memory. And these areas all need integration for refined inner awareness as a daily practice. Also, these practices build over time and create a field of integration that stabilizes the changes and continuing changes within us, making them accessible, integrating, and expansive and stabilizing. Number 2 is valuing the time necessary for sustaining the connection to higher alignment is vital for maintaining the connection that was previously attained and gained in a spiritual awakening. Often when people have a peak experience, they're thrust back into their previous way of life or grind for work that can be jolting to the system that is trying to integrate and adjust. Maintaining what is gained, whether the experience was from an intense musical experience, out of body experience, near-death experience, psychedelic experience, or dream or other kind of experience. It's all about having methods and tools that continue to nurture and support those gains that help us integrate and continue connection with alpha and deeper states of consciousness. This area also can be called self-care, and self-care is about sustaining practices that support and sustain this connection. Often for people having a regular connection to nature or being still and or quiet, and through specific transformational sounds, connect to deeper states of consciousness. In the area of self-care, there are 5 areas. And the first area is getting into nature regularly. This can be doing a physical activity like walking or biking or hiking or tending a garden, being near water or going out in a boat, seeing and feeling and taking in the energy of nature, the movement of the creatures and sky and wind, the odors and colors and temperatures, being outside in different seasons in the day and the night anchors our connection to being present and grounded on earth. And also visiting sacred locations can be inspiring as we connect with the ancient energies. And number 2 is getting regular sleep. Helps us integrate through all of our systems that support our physical and mental and emotional functioning. Other areas are through our dreams are vital because those are processing areas. Getting good and regular sleep aligns our body as it also gives us tools for deeper connection to our guidance through different dream states and different levels of consciousness that occur through sleep. Another area is consuming nutritious foods and good water. Helps us to sustain physical, mental, emotional balance and health. Avoiding sugary foods and beverages, highly processed foods with chemicals and preservatives is also beneficial. And foods that are good for our digestive system also are supportive. And another area is connecting with animals or creatures as companions, and tending plants are ways we connect with our environment that are nurturing for us. While most people may connect with a cat or a dog, others will connect with lizards, birds, rabbits, turtles, and other creatures. Visiting others who have an animal or creature or volunteering with animals are other ways to connect with animals and creatures if you don't want to have the responsibility or can't have that companion in your home. Another area is self-care. All of self-care also includes regular exercise that creates enjoyable movement. While many people like to walk, Other types of movement are swimming, biking, dancing, yoga, martial arts, tennis, or other forms of movement, or pickleball. This category overlaps with connecting to nature. Many movements are done outside and can include being in nature, so two areas are completed at the same time. And number 3 is staying connected and social connections. Finding people with whom you resonate through spiritual awakening changes can be allowing for adjustments in your interests and what feels right. Past interests may no longer be appealing, or they may have shifted to a different version. Discovering new areas where there is connection and feeling of acceptance can take time to locate. There are some groups that are available through social media, and then other groups that are by invitation only that require to meet with people in person to get invited to those more secluded gatherings. Finding people to meet with in person and online can meet the criteria, and also knowing in-person meetings have an exchange of energy that is not the same as online. Online meetings cannot be substituted for staying connected in person. Connection with others who we learn to trust and they trust us also gives us access to ask for referrals to a trusted person for additional support or interest. And number 4 is our relationship within and with others is through developing compassion. Compassion, an aspect of the heart, and kindness, forgiveness, and consideration, and also kindness, forgiveness, and consideration. Withholding compassion from ourselves may have been a learned behavior from our families for being compliant, meant to be perfect, to be loved. Another withholding of compassion is judgment of ourselves and guilt. Holding compassion for ourselves is often not even noticed how we cannot hold compassion. Consider the feeling of compassion you can connect to for an animal or a human baby. Just take a moment to consider the feelings of compassion include forgiveness, kindness, and knowing they're always going to be held, loved, and lovable. Take a moment to not listen to this video, but to feel compassion, to be held, loved, and lovable. And where you feel that in your body, and hold that feeling where you can identify where that's located within your body. And often that may be your heart. It may be below your heart, around your solar plexus, or lower in your abdomen, or somewhere else. Now transfer that feeling of endless being loved, lovable, willingness to be held, compassion, kindness, and forgiveness for the animal or human baby, and expand that and transfer that to yourself and hold it and notice. Mental and emotional regulation. Although a person has experienced one or more spiritual awakenings, their mental and emotional regulation can be or become dysregulated, which can become depression or have negative thoughts or anxiety. Spiritual awakenings do not mean you suddenly become perfect or are released from the human experience or have released all your trauma or negative experiences. Moving into gratitude can be helpful to shift the energy from negative states for several reasons. One, it's a conscious intervention from previous, and it interrupts the negative thoughts. And number 2, when we refocus, there's a recalibration that affects the heart and feeling centers that are dynamic. This releases the negative energy and allows the positive gratitude content. Other methods that are consistent for developing and continuing the path of spiritual awakening are regular daily connection to alpha brainwaves and deeper through practices like curated sound healing methods that easily shift consciousness simply by listening. Intuition. In the spiritual awakening process, our intuition is progressing. As Gary Zukav states, we are becoming multisensory beings, Although we may have been born into a time or with a family that was not attuned or aware of these other sensory awarenesses beyond the five senses, it does not mean we don't experience them. In 2008, I was listening to the sound wisdom keeper of Egypt explaining that when there are 50 kinds of intuitive categories collected and recorded, it would herald the return of the ancient knowledge. The significance of identifying these 50 categories would help restore lost information and healing to our planet. This sound wisdom keeper was Abdel Hakim Ayan, born in 1920 and died in 2008. And he grew up at the base of the Egyptian pyramids and was keenly in attunement with the underground sound chambers used for healing. I had already recorded 35 kinds of intuition and used those in my study programs and felt compelled to collect the other 15 kinds, not realizing there are now almost 60 kinds recorded in my book, 55 plus kinds of intuition. Becoming aware of how our intuition arises, changes, and how we experience it consistently is a component of our developing multisensory awareness. The different abilities may include auditory, knowings, ahas, gut knowings, dreams, whispers, and physical responses that include chills and shivers and other similar experiences. Learning our language of intuitive communication develops, evolves, and heightens as we grow and change. Trusting this inherent wisdom as an inner heightened system that you can rely upon sometimes offers challenges. And as we continue to expand and navigate through these times, more of these abilities are becoming known to us. This growing relationship with ourselves and how we allow, receive permission, and apply the wisdom to our circumstances is also connected to all the areas listed above, including boundaries, friendships, and families, new connections, our self-care, connections with animals and creatures, our sleep, food and nutritional intake, daily practices, and to all our memories and relationships and our expanding awareness. Thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe and check out the 3 Malete programs.